I spent the last 5 minutes sitting here trying to come up with an intro that would be catchy, funny, or some kind of analogy or simile that would captivate the people watching, aka you guys. But I couldn't come up with anything, so I'm just gonna dive right into it. I went to a sensory deprivation tank yesterday and didn't really know what to expect. I heard about it from Joe Rogan many times. The way that guy talks about it, you think this guy jerks off to the idea of sensory deprivation tanks. And I'm like, I don't think I'll have a similar experience to that, but hey, I'll go and see what happens. This entire experience cost me $90 in Montreal. I took this photo right before I actually went into this tank. So I walked in to this little room. There was a little shower in the corner, and then you have this toilet or egg-shaped thing with 2,000 cups of salt that's in the water. So you just lay there like that, and you float. And you feel nothing. You are completely weightless. You're completely naked the entire time when you're in that tub. Free willy. Just everything is out and hanging. You can lock the door behind you and feel comfortable. No one walks in unless you ask for assistance, of course. Which also, there's a button for that as well in the tub. In case something happens, you can just press that thing and boom, they come and save you. And they drag your lifeless, naked body out of the tub, which on its own is more embarrassing, I think. I get in there. I was feeling a little bit claustrophobic because it's a decently sized thing. But just like any confined space, you get in there and you kind of feel like you could get out of this and maybe you want to breathe a little bit. But I'm like, listen, man, this is the journey. It's an experience. I want to see what the fuck this is like. And I did. I get in there. There's a little light switch there in the tub itself. There's a switch that controls the light in the room itself. And another button that controls whether or not there's music playing while you're in the tub itself. So I'm there laying down, and I'm no stranger to water. I was pretty much born in the water. I don't remember ever learning how to swim. I've just known how to swim ever since I've known myself, because I grew up next to the water, next to the Sea of Marmara in Istanbul. My grandparents had a beach house there, and I grew up swimming in salt water. And I loved it. Of course, in salt water and in the sea, all you gotta do is simply lay down and you float, no problem, because the salt has natural buoyancy. And of course, when you're my size, floating is not a problem either way. But the problem is the water of the sea is always wavy, and it's getting in your eyes, in your face, kind of throwing you off your equilibrium. That is actually, I found, to be a key difference between floating in the sea and floating in a sensory deprivation tank, because the water in a sensory deprivation tank is completely still. There is nothing there. You just lay there, and I was actually able to literally, like, put my arms back like this and float without any worries. This tank is supposed to deprive your 5 senses, your sense of touch, feel, smell. I forget what the others are. Let me just Google it real quick. I'm having a major brain fart right now. So sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch. Those 5 senses. So it's supposed to deprive you of all 5 of those. Now, when I was laying in this tub, I could hear the sounds that were happening in the spa around me. Like the receptionist taking a phone call. Apparently some guy had foot fungus, couldn't come into his appointment. Disturbing. And I'm like, okay, I need to drown out this sound. So I literally dipped my ears back further in the water, and my ears filled with this water, and I couldn't hear anything. And that was perfect. And I was in there for an hour. My mind just went everywhere because it's complete darkness in there. I pressed the button that made the light in there turn off. I pressed the button that made the music in there turn off. And all I was left with was I was floating in water in a dark pod alone, and my only company was my own thoughts. And of course, when that happens, you're forced to deal with some of the thoughts you have. And I'm there thinking, I'm like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? I'm waiting to have like a sense or a spark or something to happen. But nothing happened. I'm just there. I got bored. And I'm there. I'm like, okay, what are my thoughts now? What am I thinking about? And I thought of a lot of different things. I just thought about life. I thought about death. I thought about certain life events that happened. Just the kind of things you think about when you're locked in a pod and you have no way of actually sensing anything. And I started to breathe loudly, the kind of breathing you do when you meditate. And I'm hoping to have some kind of spark that something's gonna come to me, but nothing came. The hour passed by very quickly, I will say. Felt like a minute of time in there. And the next thing you know, it was over. I'm like, okay. But before all that happened, there was a feeling, a really, really big feeling of gratitude. The fact that I was even able to be in that pod there. And I left, and then I'm able to make this video talking about my experience onto a channel that I have 2 million subscribers on that I built over the last 4 years. Just a lot of gratitude surrounding that, which I'm very thankful for. When I posted the photos onto my Instagram later, a lot of people messaged me saying they thought this was a toilet. And I then posted this story of me smiling, saying it was super necessary that I did that. A lot of people thought I took a shit in that water, and then I was smiling because I took a shit. And I'm like, no, that's very disturbing. And I didn't realize that until a few hours after, until I posted that story. And then I'm like, oh crap, people think I actually took a shit in that water, and I come out all happy and smiling, and they didn't even realize what I had actually done. But hey, you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. And then I had to, of course, make another story being like, yo, that's not a toilet, bro. That's a sensory deprivation tank. And you just lay there and you float and everything is all good. I guess the big question is, would I do it again? I think I would. I actually do want to go back there because it's kind of weird. I realized I haven't truly been bored like that in my life for a very long time. Everywhere I go, especially nowadays, man, you got your phone on you, distractions are everywhere. People text you, you hear voices and sounds of the streets. You never truly have moments where you're just by yourself, alone in your own thoughts. Even here, when I'm in my house, I hear sounds all the time that I have no control over. And the similar experience occurred when I was in the tub and I could hear the sounds of the spa around me, but I was able to, you know, dim it all out and just focus on me and being there and being present. Now, this was, I will say, as close as I got to having a psychedelic experience while not on psychedelics. The lady who works there was telling me, before you make a decision on whether to come back here, sleep tonight and see how well you sleep. And I'm like, okay. Last night was one of the best sleeps I ever had in my entire life. For that alone, that $90 I would say is worth it. The same way how an hour in that tub felt like a minute and the time passed by very quickly, when I was sleeping, that was flipped. And 1 minute of sleep felt like an hour. And I got up feeling incredibly refreshed, as if I just literally had a rebirth, as if I woke up in a new consciousness, like a real altered carbon kind of thing. Now I gotta go back next week because that sleep was so good, man. And you know, when I look back in my life, I don't often remember the nights I had a great night's sleep, but I remember a few of them. I do. A few of them I'm like, that was a good night of sleep. And this was one of those nights. It was a solid 8 hours of sleep, and I felt like I literally made up for all the lack of sleep I've had in the last few years by one night. And thankfully, a sensory deprivation tank was enough to do that. Yeah, that's it for today. I'll see you next time.